started small. Things like this always do. Tuesday night. I got home later than usual. Traffic. Some delay at the office. Nothing major. I walked through the door expecting the usual routine. The sound of the TV murmuring in the background. The smell of something reheated. Rachel sitting at the kitchen table either working on her laptop or scrolling through her phone. That had become our rhythm. Comfortable, predictable, even if it wasn't particularly exciting anymore. But that night felt different, and I didn't know why until about 15 seconds after walking through the door. I stepped into the kitchen and found her standing by the counter, facing slightly away. Her phone was in her hand, and the screen was glowing. I wasn't trying to sneak up on her or anything. I even called out a soft, "Hey," when I walked in, but the way she flinched when she noticed me made me pause. That's when it happened. The screen lit up again, just bright enough for me to catch the name Kendra, before she pressed the lock button and flipped it face down. Now, let me say this up front. I'm not the jealous type. I'm not the kind of guy who micromanages who my wife talks to or gets twitchy every time she gets a text. That's never been me. I believe in privacy and trust, or at least I did. But the way she reacted in that moment, it didn't feel normal. I tried to play it off. I smiled, leaned against the fridge, and asked in a light voice, "What's with the cloak and dagger routine? Classified info?" She gave me a short laugh, but it sounded hollow. "Oh no," she said, waving her hand like I was being ridiculous. "It's just Kendra from work. She's bugging me about what dress to wear to the office party." That might have been the end of it, but she kept talking, rambling, really, about Kendra being so dramatic about clothes, how nobody was going to care what anyone wore, how the party was going to be boring anyway. She talked a mile a minute and never once picked her phone back up. And for some reason, that rubbed me the wrong way. I didn't call her out on it. I just nodded, pretending to listen, but inside, something was nagging at me. Kendra. I'd heard the name before, vaguely. I think Rachel had mentioned her a few times in passing, but not enough for me to recognize the name immediately. And definitely not enough for her to be texting my wife on a random Tuesday night about a dress with that kind of urgency. Maybe I was overthinking it. That's what I told myself. But once you see something that doesn't feel right, it's like trying to unsee it. Your brain starts working in the background, filling in gaps you didn't even know were there. The rest of the evening played out like nothing happened. We had dinner, watched a little TV. She laughed at the sitcom we always watched, even leaned into me during one of the episodes. Nothing seemed different, and that's what made it so strange. Because something was different. I just couldn't prove it yet. Later that night, as I was brushing my teeth, I heard the quiet buzz of her phone vibrating on the nightstand. I poked my head out of the bathroom and saw her glance at it, then turned the screen over without touching it. She didn't open it, didn't even look at who it was, just flipped it. That's when I knew. Not what was going on, but that something was going on. Because Rachel never used to be that way. If anything, she was the one constantly sharing texts with me, laughing at memes, showing me dumb videos her coworkers sent. She used to leave her phone face up on the counter, unattended, without a second thought. If it buzzed, she'd glance at it and tell me who it was, even if I didn't ask. That was just her way, open, casual, unbothered. But not lately. Lately, things had shifted, and I hadn't noticed how far they'd moved until that night. She started taking her phone with her into the bathroom. It was subtle at first. Maybe she was playing music or scrolling like everyone else. But after the kitchen incident, I paid more attention. I noticed how she would angle the screen away from me when texting. How she turned off message previews so I couldn't see even a hint of who was texting or what it said. I tried not to jump to conclusions. Tried to tell myself it was nothing. Maybe Kendra really was asking about a dress. Maybe work had gotten more intense. Maybe she had personal things going on she didn't feel like talking about yet. I tried to give her the benefit of the doubt, again and again, but doubt has a way of piling up until it doesn't feel like doubt anymore. It feels like denial. A few days after that night, I noticed she started turning her phone on silent. Not just at night, but all the time. No buzz, no chime, no notifications. Just quiet. When I asked her about it, she shrugged and said she was getting tired of all the group chats going off during meetings. Fair enough. I nodded and let it go. But she never turned the sound back on. And I couldn't help but notice that she was suddenly very protective of that phone. Like it was a lifeline she couldn't risk losing. If it buzzed in the other room, she'd get up and grab it right away. Not like she was excited. More like she was worried someone else might see it first. I started asking myself questions I didn't like the answers to. Had she always been like this and I just never noticed? Had something changed between us that I hadn't seen? Was I doing something wrong? Because here's the thing no one tells you. When you start suspecting the person you love is lying to you, the first thing you do isn't blame them. You blame yourself. You wonder if you were distant, if you missed something, if you got too comfortable. You replay old conversations, looking for signs you might have brushed off. You try to remember the last time things felt really good, not just okay, but connected. And the more you think about it, the further back that moment seems to drift. I remembered a time, maybe 2 months earlier, when we were getting ready for bed and Rachel mentioned she was going to grab drinks with coworkers later that week. At the time, I didn't think much of it. But now, I remembered how she hesitated before naming who was going. She said, "Just the usual group," and moved on. Back then, I hadn't cared. I trusted her. But now I was wondering, who was the usual group? And more importantly, was Kendra even real? That thought made my stomach turn. I didn't want to become one of those guys. The ones who check their partner's phone, who second-guess every word, who live in a constant state of suspicion. But the signs were adding up. And that one little moment in the kitchen, that one text message she hid, had cracked something open. Not a full collapse. Not yet. But something in me had shifted. The part of me that never asked questions had started asking. And the part of me that used to trust without thinking was now paying attention. Funny how hindsight works. Once you start questioning things, your memory goes into overdrive. Little things you'd brushed off before, suddenly stand out like neon signs. Stuff that once seemed harmless now feels like puzzle pieces finally snapping into place. That's what the days after the Kendra text felt like. Like my brain had flipped a switch. Everything Rachel had said or done in the past month began rewinding in my head, unedited. I started noticing what I hadn't been paying attention to, or maybe what I didn't want to see. It started with the late nights. At first, it was just once or twice a week. She'd tell me a project was running long or a meeting went over. That made sense. Rachel worked in marketing and deadlines could get messy. I believed her. Why wouldn't I? She'd come home late, say she was exhausted, and go straight to bed. No red flags. Until it became 3 nights a week. Then 4. Then 5. I didn't even realize how often she was working late until I was eating dinner alone for the 3rd night in a row, pushing food around my plate and staring at the empty seat across from me. That's when it hit me. I couldn't remember the last time we'd actually had dinner together. I tried bringing it up once. I said, "Hey, I miss our evenings. Remember when we used to cook together?" I wasn't accusing, just trying to reconnect. She smiled, kissed me on the cheek, and said, "Let's plan something for the weekend. Okay?" Then she went right back to her email. The weekend came. She said she had to help out with a client launch and that she'd be home late. Again, I told myself not to overreact. People get busy. Careers take work. But that quiet voice in my head wouldn't shut up. The one whispering that she wasn't just busy. She was distant, different. That's when I started noticing the scent. Rachel had always worn the same perfume. Something subtle and floral, barely noticeable. But lately, she'd been wearing something new. Stronger, more noticeable. Something I'd never smelled on her before. When I asked her about it, she laughed it off. "Oh, you're just now noticing? I've had this one forever. Thought I'd switch things up." Maybe that was true. Or maybe she was wearing it for someone else. Then there were the dinners she started ordering on her own. This one sounds stupid, I know, but it got to me. We'd always been the kind of couple who planned meals together. Nothing fancy, just a shared routine. But recently, I'd come home to find receipts from DoorDash or empty takeout containers in the trash. Food I didn't recognize and definitely didn't eat. I'd ask if she wanted to order something with me, and she'd say she already ate. Every time, I'd smile and nod, pretending it didn't sting. But inside, I was wondering when we stopped being we, when she started living like a roommate with secrets. The final straw, or maybe just the most obvious one, was the Zoom calls. Rachel had been working from home part-time since the pandemic, and we'd both set up shop in the kitchen. She used to take her meetings right there, earbuds in, laptop open, while I worked quietly nearby. We had a rhythm. We were comfortable. But one day, she stood up in the middle of a normal morning and said, "Hey, I'm gonna start taking my calls in the guest room. I just need better focus." Sure, I thought. That made sense. Maybe the kitchen was too noisy. I didn't question it, but I started noticing she'd close the door behind her. Every time. And lock it. Who locks a door for a Zoom call? She said it was for privacy, that she didn't want to distract me, but that didn't track. She used to joke and wave at her coworkers while I walked around the kitchen in sweatpants. We weren't that formal. So what changed? Who was she trying to hide from? Me or them? And then there were the parties. Rachel used to love bringing me along to her work events. She said I was her +1 MVP. I'd met her team, shared drinks with her boss, even gave pep talks to nervous interns. I wasn't just tolerated, I was invited. But lately, nothing. I found out about the last 2 parties from social media. A few coworkers posted photos. Crowded rooms, loud music, too many people crammed into someone's overpriced apartment. In the background of one photo, I saw Rachel, laughing, her head thrown back in that carefree way that used to be reserved for me. When I asked why I hadn't been invited, she hesitated. "You would have been bored," she said. "It was mostly work people. Nothing exciting." She said it like she was doing me a favor. But the truth was, she didn't want me there. And once I admitted that to myself, the rest of the puzzle fell into place. The late nights, the locked doors, the perfume, the sudden privacy, the parties she attended solo. It wasn't a coincidence. It was a pattern. She was carving out a life that didn't include me, and covering her tracks as she went. There's a moment, if you've ever been in this position, you know it, when the lie is still technically deniable, but your heart already knows the truth. You don't need an affair caught on camera or a stranger's text message to confirm it. You just feel it. In the way she stopped reaching for your hand. In the way her "I love you" started sounding like an obligation. In the way your home becomes quieter, colder, even when she's sitting right there. I stopped sleeping through the night. I'd wake up and just stare at the ceiling, wondering what had gone wrong. Wondering if I'd missed the signs for too long, or if maybe she had just changed and didn't have the guts to say it out loud. I thought about asking her, just coming right out with it. But what would I say? "Hey, are you cheating on me?" She'd deny it. She'd tell me I was paranoid or insecure. And maybe she'd even believe it herself. Maybe she'd convince herself nothing technically happened yet, so it wasn't cheating. Maybe in her head, it wasn't real. But I knew what was real. Distance was real. Silence was real. And lies, even the quiet kind, leave bruises you can't explain. I started watching her more closely, not because I wanted to catch her, but because I didn't want to be the last to know. I didn't want to keep defending something that was already gone. And deep down, I started preparing myself for the moment everything would come crashing down. Because the truth was coming. And I had a feeling I wouldn't have to wait much longer to see it. When you're living in denial, every day is a negotiation. You reason with yourself, you bargain, you rewrite the rules in your head to avoid facing the truth. You tell yourself you need more evidence. More proof. That maybe it's just in your head. That if you're wrong, if you say something too soon, you might ruin something that's just off, not broken. But sometimes the universe doesn't wait for you to be ready. That night, we were supposed to go to a party. One of her coworkers, someone I barely knew, was hosting a birthday bash at their place uptown. I hadn't planned to go. Rachel had mentioned it offhand a week before, said she might swing by after work. But then, that morning, she asked me to come along. Caught me off guard. For weeks, she'd been pushing me out of her social orbit. Suddenly now, I was welcome? "You sure?" I asked, trying to play it cool. "I thought you said it'd be mostly your work people." She shrugged like it was no big deal. "It'll be fun. You've been stressed lately. Come unwind." That's what she said. but the way she said it felt rehearsed, like she'd already run through it in her head a few times. I didn't press her. Honestly, I wanted to go. I needed to see it with my own eyes. I was tired of theories and guesses and gut feelings. I needed something undeniable. Something that would take the question mark in my chest and turn it into a period. So I said yes. We arrived around 8:30. It was one of those packed apartment parties where no one really knows who invited who. Loud music, dim lighting, drinks everywhere. I recognized a few people from Rachel's office, but I didn't make a big deal about it. I just grabbed a drink and tried to blend in. She stayed close for the first few minutes, introduced me to a few coworkers, laughed too hard at someone's joke, smiled that wide, practiced smile she had. But even then, I could tell she was half somewhere else. She kept glancing around the room, checking her phone when she thought I wasn't looking. About 30 minutes in, I turned to say something to her, and she was gone. Just like that. I checked the kitchen, the hallway, the balcony. Nothing. People were everywhere. Music was thumping, and the crowd had thickened enough to make it easy to disappear into. That's when I saw the dance floor. It wasn't a real dance floor, just the living room with the furniture pushed to the sides. People were dancing, bumping shoulders, spilling drinks. But right in the middle, she stood out. Rachel. And a guy I'd never seen before. Tall. Tan jacket. Clean cut. One of those guys who looked like he belonged in a startup ad campaign. All charm and teeth. His hands were low on her waist. Hers were curled behind his neck. They were close. Closer than coworkers. Closer than friends. She was smiling. Not like someone politely making conversation, but like someone who had let go of every worry in the world. Like she had forgotten I existed. I stopped a few feet away, half hidden behind a taller guy holding a beer. For a moment, I thought maybe I was misreading it. Maybe it was just the lighting, the music, the kind of overthinking I'd been doing too much of lately. But then she looked up, right at me, and in that instant, something happened I didn't expect. She didn't flinch. She didn't panic. She didn't pull away. She smirked. It was small, barely there, but I saw it. A little twist at the corner of her mouth that said, "What are you going to do about it?" That broke something in me. Not the way a scream would, but quiet, like glass cracking under the weight of silence. I didn't storm over. I didn't yell or make a scene. I didn't want to give her the satisfaction. I just turned and walked back to the front room, where her purse sat abandoned on a side table next to someone's half-empty punch cup. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out my wedding ring, the one I'd started taking off more and more lately, mostly out of habit. I placed it right beside her purse, on the corner of the table, just far enough out to be seen. Felt symbolic. Final. A line drawn. Then I walked out. I didn't say a word to anyone. I didn't look back. I half expected her to come running after me, to chase me down the hallway or text me with some flimsy excuse. But she didn't. She stayed. She kept dancing. Maybe she thought I'd wait, that I'd cool off outside, give her time to gather a story. Maybe she thought I'd do what I always did. Hold it in, brush it off, make peace for the sake of keeping things from falling apart. But I didn't. I got in the car and drove. The drive itself is a blur. My hands were tight on the wheel, and my heart was pounding, but not in a dramatic movie scene kind of way. It was quieter than that. Colder. Like the part of me that had been holding out hope had finally packed up and left. I ended up somewhere off the highway, a random gas station parking lot next to a bar that looked like it hadn't been updated since 1998. The kind of place with buzzing neon lights and a jukebox in the corner that always played the same 3 sad country songs. I sat in the car for a few minutes before walking in. It was almost empty. A few older guys at the bar, one woman sitting alone at a booth in the corner, and a bored-looking bartender scrolling through his phone. I ordered coffee, not because I wanted it, but because I needed something to hold. Something to do with my hands while my entire life recalibrated in real time. I picked a booth near the back, sat down, and just stared. I don't know how long I sat there. Time felt weird. My brain kept replaying that moment, her face when she saw me. The smirk. The way she just kept dancing like I wasn't real anymore. like I was just part of the old story she was trying to close the book on. Eventually, the woman in the corner booth glanced over at me. She looked to be in her late 30s, dressed casual, no makeup, tired eyes. "You ran away too?" she asked. Her voice wasn't mocking, just honest. I gave a small laugh, shook my head. "Something like that." She nodded. Didn't say more. Just raised her glass slightly, a silent toast to mutual escape. We didn't talk much after that. Didn't need to. Some silences are heavier than words. When I finally left the bar, it was almost 2 a.m. The parking lot was quiet. My phone had a few messages, all from Rachel. "Where did you go? Seriously, Steve, where are you? Can we talk? Please don't do anything stupid." I didn't answer. What was there to say? There comes a point in a relationship, in any betrayal, when the damage isn't just about what someone did. It's about who they let themselves become while they did it. And the Rachel I saw on that dance floor wasn't the woman I married. She wasn't even trying to be. That smirk? That was the moment I realized she had already left. Long before I did. I didn't go home that night. I don't know if that was a conscious decision or just something my body chose for me, but the idea of walking back into that house, our house, felt unbearable. Every red light I stopped at felt like a chance to turn around, and every time the light changed, I kept going. The roads were mostly empty, the city thinning out as I drove farther from anything familiar. No destination, no plan, just distance. I turned the radio off because music felt intrusive, like it was trying to tell me how to feel. I didn't want guidance. I wanted silence. Around midnight, hunger crept in, the dull, hollow kind you don't notice until everything else goes quiet. That's when I saw the sign. A roadside bar attached to a low-budget motel, the kind with flickering letters and a parking lot full of cracked pavement. I pulled in without thinking. Inside, the bar smelled like old wood, coffee, and something fried earlier in the night. It wasn't sad, just tired. There were only 3 people inside. The bartender wiping down the counter, a guy asleep over a beer, and a woman sitting alone in the corner booth. I took a seat at the bar and ordered coffee. The bartender raised an eyebrow but didn't comment. I wrapped my hands around the mug like it was something solid I could anchor myself to. I wasn't there to drink. I wasn't there to talk. I just needed somewhere that wasn't my life. That's when I heard her voice. "You ran away too?" I turned slightly. The woman in the corner was watching me now. Late 30s, maybe early 40s. No heavy makeup. No phone in her hands. Just tired eyes and a half-smile that carried more understanding than curiosity. "Something like that," I said. She nodded once, like that answer was enough. "Me too." There was no awkward follow-up. No pressure to explain. She lifted her glass, whiskey, I guessed, in a quiet toast, and I lifted my coffee back. We didn't exchange names. After a few minutes, she slid into the booth across from me without asking. It felt natural, like 2 people recognizing the same damage in different shapes. "Let me guess," she said. "Someone you trusted made you feel stupid tonight." I laughed. A short, dry sound that surprised me. "Yeah, that about covers it." She exhaled slowly. "That look you have, it's the I should have known one." I stared down at the table. The worst part is I did know. I just didn't want to. She didn't rush to respond. Just nodded. That's usually how it goes. We talked, but not about details. No names. No timelines. Just fragments. Enough to feel seen without reopening wounds. She told me she'd left a situation that stopped feeling safe emotionally. I told her I'd just watched my marriage end without a single word being spoken. No advice. No cliches. Just shared air. At some point, she said, "You're allowed to stop saving something that doesn't want to be saved." That stuck with me. Around 2 a.m. She stood, tossed some bills on the table, and grabbed her coat. "Take care of yourself," she said. "You look like someone who forgets to." Then she was gone. I sat there a while longer, staring into nothing. When I finally stepped outside, the air was cold and sharp. I looked at my phone. 7 missed calls. All from Rachel. Texts stacked on top of each other. "Where are you? This isn't funny. You just left. Can we talk? You're overreacting. Steve, answer me. That last one did it. Overreacting. I put the phone face down and walked into the motel office. The clerk barely looked up as I paid for a room. The key was heavy in my hand. Physical proof that I was choosing space over comfort. The room was basic. Bed, lamp, curtains that didn't quite close. I sat on the edge of the mattress and stared at my ringless hand. For the first time that night, I felt calm. Not okay, not healed, but calm. I lay down fully clothed and stared at the ceiling, replaying the night. Not with anger, but clarity. The dance, the smirk, the way she didn't follow, the way she assumed I'd stay. I fell asleep thinking one thing over and over. I don't have to keep pretending anymore. And that thought felt like freedom. I woke up before the sun. The motel room was still dark, with only a faint blue-gray hue leaking through the thin curtains. For a moment, I forgot where I was. My hand reached instinctively for the nightstand. No familiar lamp, no Rachel's alarm clock glowing red, just a glass of water and my keys. And then it hit me. The bar, the dance, the look in her eyes, the ring on the table, all of it. I sat up slowly, the stiffness in my back a reminder that cheap mattresses aren't built for clarity. Just escape. I hadn't slept well, but it was the kind of restless sleep where the body shuts down out of necessity. Emotional triage. I didn't check my phone right away. I didn't want to. Whatever she had to say could wait. It had waited for weeks, maybe months. What difference would another hour make? Eventually, I got up, splashed cold water on my face, and looked in the mirror. I looked like someone who'd been hit by something invisible. Not broken, just stunned. There's a certain kind of exhaustion that doesn't show in your eyes, but in the way your shoulders sit, in how you breathe. I checked out around 7:15. The ride home was quiet, just me and the soft hum of tires on asphalt. I didn't rush. I wasn't sure what I was walking into. Was she still there? Was she panicking? Had she packed a bag and left? Turns out, none of the above. Her shoes were in the hallway when I walked in, the beige flats she always complained about but kept wearing. That meant she'd gotten home before me. I stepped inside slowly, keys still in hand like a shield. The air felt heavy, like the house knew what had happened, like the walls were holding their breath. I found her in the kitchen. She was leaning against the counter, arms crossed, phone on the table. She wasn't crying. She wasn't yelling. She wasn't doing anything. Just standing there, like she had been waiting for this moment, but didn't know what to do with it once it arrived. "Hey," she said. That was it. "Hey." I didn't respond. I just stared at her. Not with hate. I didn't even have that in me, but with something colder. Something like distance. She cleared her throat, straightened up a little and added, "You left early." I let that hang in the air. No sarcasm. No disbelief. Just nothing. I wanted her to feel how absurd that sentence was. She looked away. "I didn't know where you went." "I know," I said. It was the first thing I'd said since I walked in, and it landed harder than I expected. She nodded slowly, as if she were waiting for the explosion that never came. But I wasn't going to give her a performance. Not today. "What are we doing, Steve?" she finally asked. I tilted my head slightly. "You tell me." She hesitated, opened her mouth, closed it, and that right there, that silence, told me more than any confession ever could. She didn't deny it. Didn't say, "It's not what it looked like." Didn't say, "That guy's just a friend." Didn't say, "Let me explain." Instead, she just stood there, frozen in a guilt she couldn't name out loud. So I stepped past her and opened the fridge. Not because I was hungry, I wasn't, but I needed something to do. Something that wasn't staring at her across a table we used to laugh at. She stayed in the doorway. After a few minutes, she said, "You didn't answer my texts." "Nope." "And you didn't call." "No." Another long pause. I didn't mean for it to go that far. That's the sentence that made me stop. Not because it was dramatic, but because it was cowardly. I turned slowly and looked at her. "What do you mean by that far? Dancing with him? Lying about where you were?" Watching me watch you and still not stopping? Her face crumpled slightly. Not crying, not yet, but cracking. It was just a moment. No, Rachel. It wasn't. She flinched like I'd hit her. Don't do that, she said quietly. Do what? Act like I'm a monster. I shook my head. I'm not. I'm just done pretending that you're someone else. That shut her up. The truth is, I wasn't angry in that moment. I thought I would be. I thought I'd scream or slam a door or demand an explanation. But when you already know the answers, the questions stop mattering. She crossed her arms tighter, holding herself like she was afraid she might fall apart. You're overreacting. There it was. The phrase I dreaded. The phrase I'd expected. I laughed. Quietly, bitterly. You think that's what this is? I mean, it was a dance, Steve. It didn't mean anything. Then why did you hide it? Why didn't you stop when you saw me? Why didn't you come home with me? Silence again. I nodded slowly. That's what I thought. She looked down at the floor like it might offer her a script. Like the right line might save this scene. I made a mistake, she finally said. No, I said. You made a choice. That's not the same thing. She finally started to cry. Silent tears. The kind you hope no one notices. The kind you cry when you know it's too late to fix anything. I still love you, she whispered. That was almost worse than if she hadn't said anything. Then why didn't you act like it? She couldn't answer. I walked past her and into the hallway. Not storming off, just done. I needed space. I needed air. I needed her to feel the silence she'd earned. Before I reached the stairs, I turned back. You know what hurts the most? I said. Not the dance. Not the guy. Not even the lies. She looked up, eyes swollen and red. It's that you stood there and watched me leave. And you let me. Her lips parted like she wanted to say something, but I didn't give her the chance. I went upstairs, closed the door to the guest room, and sat on the edge of the bed. No shouting. No dramatic ending. Just silence. The same kind she gave me when it mattered. A few days later, someone knocked at the door. I opened it to find him, the guy from the party. Josh. He looked surprised. I answered. Said Rachel hadn't responded to his texts and figured maybe she was back with her husband. No apology. No shame. Just a smirk, like it was all casual. I didn't say a word. Just shut the door in his face. Inside, I sat on the couch staring at nothing. That moment wasn't about jealousy, it was disgust. She hadn't just betrayed me. She chose someone who didn't even care enough to stick around. And now, they were both knocking, him literally, her emotionally. As if I owed either of them anything. But I was already gone. The moment she smirked on that dance floor, something in me shut off. Months passed. Rachel kept calling, texting, even showing up outside. But I never opened the door. Eventually, she stopped. I heard from mutual friends she was alone. Josh was long gone. Her job wasn't stable anymore. She looked lost. I didn't gloat. I didn't smile. I just felt nothing. I changed jobs. Took a trip. Started seeing someone new. Someone who looked at me like I mattered. I laughed again. I lived again. Then, one rainy afternoon, I passed Rachel at a bus stop. She didn't see me. Shoulders hunched, hair wet, eyes distant. I didn't say anything. I just kept walking. No anger. No regret. Just peace.